Tennessee This Week from WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Bo Williams to Tennessee This Week. Glad to have you with us. We had the chance last week to hear from Senator Marsha Blackburn on a number of topics, really ranging from human trafficking to protecting your kids online. Now, our conversation happened just hours before former President Donald Trump was arraigned in federal court on charges that his words and actions after the 2020 election interfering with the core process of government and with the people's right to vote. Former president entered a not guilty plea Thursday afternoon. We asked Senator Blackburn if she thinks the former president broke the law.
You know, it's so interesting to look at when things happen to the Bidens, then their reaction is to come out against Donald Trump. And this is the third and fourth time that we have seen this happen, where something comes down, Hunter's plea deal falls apart, Devin Archer makes his comments. You have something against Trump. And what Tennesseans are concerned about, they look at this and they see two tiers of justice. Had a guy yesterday in one of our meetings on our 95 county tour, and he said, Marsha, he said the Durham report that showed that Hillary Clinton she created the Russia collusion, and then she paid to have this thing pushed out. And nobody's done anything to her or any of her campaign staff that deleted emails. They bleach bitted 30,000 emails. There was a computer that had classified documentation, and they destroyed all the cell phones. And they said nothing's happened, but yet they're going to go after Trump's aide and the janitor. And they were just shocked. See, the thing is, this is someone who's not a fan of President Trump. They are a fan of the Constitution of this nation. They are a fan of the rule of law. And they look at what is happening and how something happens on the Bidens, and then there is an indictment or an accusation against Trump. And they said, yeah, two tiers of justice. That's what bothers Tennesseans. Every time they push an indictment toward him, his numbers and his favorability improve. And I have found that to be very interesting. And the American people are looking at this and they're saying, hey, wait a minute, something's not right about this. And they are making that choice to react in a way that I think we kind of expect them to react. They're going to say, no, we don't want two tiers of justice. We don't want one set for the elite, the Bidens, Obamas, Clintons, the well-connected. We want equal treatment under the law. And situations that are similarly situated need to be treated in the same manner.
Now, Senator Blackburn has also been touting the Kids Online Safety Act that she co-sponsors with Senator Richard Blumenthal, a Connecticut Democrat. Blackburn expects it to go to the Senate floor sometime in September. Now, it would require online platforms to take certain steps in the name of protecting kids on the internet. There's plenty for parents to worry about. Of course, when kids go online, we're talking from sexual exploitation to drugs to scams and more. We asked the senator what the measure does and how it works on a practical level.
What we've learned from all these parent groups with which we've worked is that they are very frustrated with the cyberbullying, the way social media is used by pedophiles, by drug dealers, really bad actors. And our children are being exposed to all sorts of things in the virtual space that in the real world, there are laws against that exposure. And parents want a way to protect their children and to be able to open up these algorithms, set their own settings, and then report things to the social media company and require that social media company to respond and to take an action to correct that wrong. So this legislation does that. It gives parents the toolbox that they need to help protect their children, and it puts the responsibility for safety by design on the social media companies and says, look, you can't look at our children as your product. You've been doing that, and everybody's about had enough of that. It's time to put parents and kids in charge. What we do not want is age verification that requires parents to submit driver's license information, passports, personal identifying information that would then expose the children even more with home addresses, contact information, things of that nature. We do study age verification to figure out how to do this, but you do not want to make the children more vulnerable. That is why age verification, while it sounds great in theory, what we have to do is give parents the ability, not the federal government, parents, the ability to protect their children and go through and manipulate those settings so that it's appropriate for their child.
Now, few would argue about the need to protect kids online. Opponents to this measure, like the Electronic Frontier Foundation, raise questions, though, including exactly what sort of content should be off limits and who gets to decide.
What we know is that big tech and their army of lobbyists, they have fought Senator Blumenthal and I on this bill. And they've fought it now for the over 2 years that we have worked on this legislation. This legislation is supported by 41 senators who have signed on as co-sponsors already, and by hundreds of parent groups and different organizations, bipartisan in nature. And you know if something is causing self-harm, if it is criminal, and if it is illegal. And you know if there are laws in the real world that prohibit you from taking a child into certain settings. And those are the things, anything that's going to cause self-harm, anything that is criminal or illegal, selling drugs, trafficking human beings, using the sex trade. And we know that a lot of these traffickers have begun to depend on social media to groom girls and pull them into sex trafficking. TBI had an interesting stat. Every 2 minutes in this country, a child is bought or sold for sex. Now think about that. And one of their primary avenues is social media.
Human trafficking is the target of another of the senator's bills. She wants to see action taken, especially at the U.S. southern border.
What we are doing is building bipartisan support for beginning to address this issue. We've had so many calls on this because the scourge of human trafficking and what is happening has had so much publicity lately, and people have begun to realize that it is happening in their communities. And when you look at the southern border, for instance, most of the women and girls that are coming across that southern border are ending up in the sex trafficking trade or the labor gangs. And many of them, about 90%, have been physically abused by the cartels as they're making this journey, physically, mentally, emotionally, and sexually abused. So what we're doing is raising the awareness with our colleagues. Human trafficking has become a $150 billion a year business. It is modern day slavery. And if you go back even 5 or 6 years ago, it was a $500 million a year business. And what we have to do is protect these women and children that are so vulnerable. Young boys that are being pushed into drug dealing or into gangs as they have linked up with the cartel and they're making this journey into the country. So, raising this awareness is an important thing to do, getting bipartisan support so that we do our part to defend people and closing that southern border so that illegal entry comes to an end. When you look at some of the stats that are out there, and how people have gone through this process coming to the country. And then you look at FBI did even a 1 month operation, and in that, the number of people they found that were being trafficked. It says this is a problem and it deserves our attention.
Well, now that we've had a chance to hear what the senator has had to say, we're going to talk with our pundits to get their reaction. That's coming up next on Tennessee This Week. And welcome back to Tennessee This Week. I'm Bo Williams, again, and for Don Hudson this week. We're joined by political analyst George Corda, political contributor Courtney Piper, and healthcare analyst Craig Griffith, our panel of pundits. Guys, great to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hey, let's jump right into it. We're going to talk about the former president, Donald Trump, of course, facing yet another indictment. George, I'm going to let you start this off. The big question is here: did he interfere? Did he knowingly interfere with the last election? That is one of the big topics that's going to be discussed and debated here. So, what are your thoughts, first of all, just with this indictment, where we stand right now, heading into what's going to be a very interesting several days, if not weeks, to watch this play out?
Well, I have a series of thoughts on this. Number one is I remember the statement of a New York judge, I think it was back in the 1960s, who said, I could indict a ham sandwich. You know, and I was reading a statistic the other day about thousands of grand juries investigating or hearing federal cases, and only 11 of them came back without indictments. So indicting is one thing, convicting is another. Now, if he actively attempted to overturn an election that he knew he had lost and admitted it, that's one thing. If it's a whole bunch of different people's interpretations of what they think he thought or what they think he said, that's another thing. But that's for a court to decide, not a bunch of people who are watching from a distance, hearing only news reports that they might agree with or disagree with, to start saying, yeah, I think he did this, or yeah, I think he didn't do this. That's not right. But what bothers me more than anything is the same reason I was against Bill Clinton's impeachment in the 1990s. Because on the predecessor of this show and on my radio show and in print, I said, my fear is that what this is going to do is make it more likely in the future for the other political party to say, you got our guy, we're going to get yours. And I think that's what's happened. And now this idea that I guarantee you, if it's a Republican in office and a Republican appointed attorney general following this administration, Joe Biden's going to be in the same spot. People are going to be wanting to prosecute him, and people are going to want to be going after him for all sorts of different things. And I fear this is a fraying of our system. It's a breakdown of our system. It's part of what helped to undermine and do away with, and this is ancient history, the Roman Republic. Why did Julius Caesar cross the Rubicon? Because he knew he was going to be prosecuted by his political enemies once he laid down his governorship of Gaul, which was modern-day France. So he crossed the Rubicon with his army, and the Roman Republic ended. I'm not saying Donald Trump's going to lead an army against Washington. I'm saying this is the kind of thing where next time it's going to be easier to go after a former president for the same thing. And it is not good for the country.
Courtney, let me ask you then, kind of following up on what George is saying here. We heard from Marsha Blackburn earlier, and she was making comments that something against the Bidens come out, then they shift the focus to Trump. Could that work opposite, as George is saying, moving forward, depending on how the upcoming election works out? She also mentioned 2 tiers of justice in all of this. Kind of get your thoughts on what the senator had to say, and also kind of playing off what George had to say there.
Well, There's so many things to say, Bo. Uh,
Not enough time in the show, right?
if future presidents spread big lies and riots ensue on the nation's capital, I would hope to God we continue to investigate how those things happen and the people behind them. I think equating Donald Trump to Bill Clinton having an extramarital affair in the Oval Office is comparing apples to oranges. As far as the Trump Biden back and forth, we're looking at President Biden's son, and he cannot be held responsible for his son's actions. So I think it's a nice thing for Republicans to look at and say, hey, don't look behind the man. Look behind the man behind the curtain. Look over here. Look over here. Look what we have. And, related to two tiers of justice, it seems like Republicans like to call out this two-tier justice system only when we're talking about Republicans and Democrats and what their political scandals or various crimes might be. They never call out the two-tier justice system when we look at the injustices that Black men, for example, face in our criminal justice system. They don't ferociously advocate for an equal justice system when we're talking about that. So I think it's all politics and it's political gamesmanship to make sure their guy gets into office.
Craig, I want you to kind of chime in all of this and also tying back in with the Clinton situation too. Obviously, yes, apples and oranges, but also lied to the American public. Also, hang on a second. He lied to the American public.
I'm not saying Clinton is like Trump. What I'm saying is I didn't think the Clinton administration impeachment was good because it would lead to the same thing further in the future, which it has.
Well, Blackburn was talking about Hillary Clinton, not Bill Clinton. So, the insurrection on January 6th, I think, was obviously the worst day, one of the worst days in the country's history. But I always felt that the false electors, the people in these various states that were, if you believe the allegations in the indictment, were almost deceived into thinking that they were doing something that would only be used as a last resort. So I think that, looking at the charges in the indictment, there was a group of people, including the defendant, that frothed this false elector scheme. And I think that that's a terrible thing to do. We'll have to see if it's proven to be going all the way to the top, which is the hardest thing to do when you're trying to convict a president on something like this. But the false elector scheme was, and I'm sorry that those people weren't held more accountable for making decisions that they did in those various states, and it may happen over time. So, in terms of this is what we're going to do when something bad happens to our party versus the next one. If you read the indictment, the allegations were that the former President Trump tried to weaponize the Department of Justice against these people in the 7 states where he thought he could get enough votes to switch the election. So it's not just one party that's doing weaponization, it's both parties. And that's something I think really needs to stop.
All right, Craig. And on that note, we're going to stop for a second as well. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more of Tennessee This Week. And welcome back to Tennessee This Week. Again, I'm Bo Williams, joined by our panel of pundits. We're going to shift gears now and focus more locally. Of course, we have the mayor's race coming up, the election just around the corner. We've seen a debate. We've heard from the candidates. Craig, I want to start with you on this one. What's jumping out to you? The big topics, obviously, affordable housing seems to be one of those that's at the forefront right now, homelessness as well. Kind of get your 2 cents on where things stand and where these discussions seem to be going, and what doors are they opening up as far as discussions as well?
Well, I think that the current mayor obviously has a leg up and probably will win the election in August. The campaigns are bringing up some things that have been brought up in city elections for years. Affordable housing, the homeless issue, safety, transparency in the budget. These are things that we've all heard candidates talk about for years. I didn't think that many things came up in the recent forum with the mayors. The current mayor put progress in progressive in her speech. Another candidate thought a golden age of the city is coming. So it's hard to see through that rhetoric to specific suggestions about things to do. Affordable housing is an issue, and you can't necessarily only tie that to homelessness. It's becoming more difficult for regular blue collar workers, middle income individuals to find a place to live here because the rents are going up, the housing prices are going up. So it's more of an issue that's starting to go against the whole socioeconomic specter. And there are going to be a number of housing developments, especially apartments that come online in the next several years that hopefully will alleviate that issue. But the mayor has a limited set of tools in the toolbox to help bring those things along. They can do some things for affordable housing for homeless, but it's the private sector that develops housing, and it's the private sector that develops that sets the price for it. So she can really, the next mayor can be a bully pulpit to get affordable housing in most every project, but we'll have to wait and see how that all works out.
Courtney, kind of go along with that same train of thought, or?
First, I'll disclose that I have contributed to Mayor Kincannon's campaign, so I'll say that. And Craig is right. The mayor does have a limited amount of tools. By state law, she cannot impose any kind of rent control. And I read the other day that the average rent in Knoxville across all units is $1,400. Now, I remember when I was in my 20s and I could find a really great apartment either by myself or to share with roommates for $350 to $500 a month. I mean, that is just not accessible to young people or anybody that might need to have a home at that price point. So we need to do something. People are getting real mad. There's a group of renters that's going to meet at the City County building on the 8th at 6 o'clock to talk about this issue. So this issue is bubbling up, and we can't just sit back and go, well, there's nothing really we can do, so just everybody get mad and not afford to live here. This is a problem, and we need to brainstorm solutions. One thing that has been brought up is some revisions to our zoning codes to allow for more things like duplexes and higher density units, condos that can be more affordable.
George, your turn, my friend.
Well, yeah, there's always the talk about affordable housing. And it tends to be the people who aren't in office usually have far more grandiose ideas of what can be done than the people who are in office and know what they can't do. Now, there's this sense among a lot of people that what government ought to do is say, well, you can't charge for that. You can't do that. You've got to do this. And government can't do that and shouldn't be able to do that. It is a supply and demand issue. People are moving here like crazy. They're getting out of blue states. They're coming from California and New York and Michigan and Pennsylvania. They are fleeing blue states and heading for Tennessee. That's well known and well documented. And the idea that the city can somehow solve this problem. Look at Nashville. My wife and I bought a house in Nashville in 1982. It was 1,200 square feet because interest rates at the time were 15%. That's all we could afford. We bought it for 57. We sold it a couple of years later for 83. That same house today is estimated at nearly $500,000. That's supply and demand. And there's not a blessed thing the city government in Nashville can do about it. Now, you can do some zoning things, and you can do some incentives possibly, but the idea of solving the affordable housing issue is a pipe dream. And this is a statistic I saw the other day that astounded me. More than half of the residents of Knoxville are renters. I had no idea that was the case. And that, I'm sorry, but they're gonna be paying higher rents because more people, if they leave that apartment, a bunch of other people are gonna line up to grab it as soon as they're gone. It's supply and demand.
All right. And on that
No,
note,
you got 30,000 college students that are trying to get apartments.
That's true.
You have
It's
UT,
an
you have to
unusual
consider, but
set of circumstances.
all right. On that note, we got to wrap it up, guys. Thanks so much, as always, for joining us tonight, all three of you. We appreciate what you have to say, and we appreciate you watching as well. You've been watching Tennessee This Week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.